It was a rainy winter day. I was scrolling through Pinterest and I got inspired by a very interesting idea. What about a linen top with embroidery for the summer? But of course, I will make it in my own style. And how could I do this without my assistant? I like him, but I'm afraid he won't help me in this case. With gentle and loving care, we remove him from the workspace. I found a piece of grey linen in my stash. Then I downloaded a pattern for a simple lingerie top from the internet, printed it out and started cutting the pattern on the fabric. I must say I'm not a seamstress. I don't have formal training, so I do things as I see fit. There will be mistakes, of course, but it's better to do something than nothing. This pattern didn't include details for finishing and straps, so I made those myself. This is my first experience in sewing clothing items and embroidering on them, so I learned some important nuances only during the sewing process. For example, I made a mistake by cutting out the pieces before embroidering on them. It's better to embroider first and then cut out. In the end, we have the following pieces: front, back, two finishing details, and straps. I will embroider on the front part. Next, I take my embroidery sketch and attach it to our fabric. It's crucial that each element of the design is in its place. I will transfer it using tracing paper. You can use any method that works best for you. Let's start transferring our design very carefully and attentively. In the end, here is what we have. Here is our thread color palette. I use cotton threads like DMC. I start embroidering the bird with a simplified version of the tambour stitch. If anyone knows its name, please write it in the comments. Next, we move on to the flowers. I embroider them with a satin stitch. There is nothing complicated here, just make sure to follow the thread, not pull it too tight, and lay it flat. By the way, I live in a village in Belarus, surrounded by one of the largest forest reserves in Europe, Naliboki Forest. My assistant breaks through to me again. He can't just sit and watch, he must help me. Life isn't the same without a cat. Do your cats help you too? Next, we take the necessary thread color and move on to the French knot stitch. French knots add volume to the embroidery, and I like using them in my work. You can use different sizes of French knots depending on how many times you wrap the thread around the needle. Then we move on to the next flower. Here we will also use a satin stitch. Again, make sure to follow our thread, not pull it too tight, and lay the stitch flat. Next, we start on the leaves using a simplified fishbone stitch. I probably use this stitch most often for embroidering leaves because I like how it looks and it's easy to embroider. I always want to finish my work quickly, so I choose simplified stitch options to enjoy the result sooner. Next is one of the easiest stitches, the back stitch. I often use it for leaf stems. Then we will embroider large leaves. I also embroider them with a satin stitch. There is nothing complicated here either, but I made the leaves more interesting by using 2 shades of green. Again, make sure our threads don't tangle and lay flat. We embroider the stems of our leaves with a stem stitch, which is also very simple, and I often use it in such elements. In the next frames, you will see how I tried to secure the fabric on the hoop. It was quite difficult to do. So it's very important not to cut out the pattern pieces before embroidering. It will be much more convenient and make your work easier. It's also crucial to wash the fabric before cutting out the pieces to avoid shrinkage later on. Do you agree that there is some magic in handmade embroidered items? They seem to have a soul in them. At this stage, I'm still learning this craft, and I hope my work will keep getting better and better. Anyway, I like what I do, and I can't wait to see the result. And of course, I'm eagerly looking forward to summer to wear this top. Next, we got to the most challenging part of the embroidery, the darts. At first, I just hand-sewed it and then carefully embroidered the pattern in that area. All the time I was embroidering, I was afraid the top wouldn't fit me, but in the end it fit perfectly. Ideally, I should have pasted the details of the top and tried it on before embroidering on it, so our work wouldn't be in vain. But as they say, no pain, no gain. The most difficult part during the sewing stage was stitching the V-shaped neckline of the top. I had the most questions about sewing here, but I managed to do it. I felt so many positive emotions holding my finished piece in my hands, and now it was time for the fitting. I think it's turned out just the way I wanted. The top fits perfectly. The embroidery looks very interesting and original. What do you think? Waiting for your reactions in the comments. Love you all and looking forward to seeing you on my channel. Bye bye.